Imagine a country in the heart of Europe split in two with 3 presidents, all overseen by a foreign official with more power than any local leader. This is the reality in Bosnia and Herzegovina, 3 decades after its devastating civil war. Today, Bosnia is politically paralyzed by the very same setup that has kept the peace, and as a multi-ethnic state, its core challenge is that its 3 constituent peoples, Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs, hold drastically different visions for the country. And their competing interests must navigate through a complex government system that has replaced war with political deadlock. So how can a nation with such a fragile and divided system even move forward? And how can it hope to join the world's most integrated political and economic union? If you're interested in learning more about what happens beyond the headlines, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because in our world, every move matters. The collapse of Yugoslavia in 1992 plunged this newly formed multi-ethnic state into a devastating civil war that lasted 3.5 years. The conflict involved the nation's 3 main antagonist ethno-religious groups: Orthodox Serbs, Catholic Croats, and Muslim Bosniaks. When the conflict ended in 1995 with the Dayton peace agreement, it had claimed approximately 100,000 lives and triggered the worst refugee crisis in Europe since the Second World War. Bosnia witnessed systemic ethnic cleansing and genocide, which ultimately forced the international community to intervene. And diplomatic efforts led by the United States, Russia, and the European Union restored a fragile coexistence between these 3 ethnic groups. Yet, the legacy of that period still shapes Bosnia's political landscape, and differing views on the past underscore the remaining wounds of war. While the Dayton Agreement ended the fighting, it created one of the world's most complicated and decentralized political systems. The deal established Bosnia as a parliamentary democracy composed of 2 main entities. The first one being the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, with a majority Croat and Bosniak, and the second, Republika Srpska, majority Serb. These 2 entities operate with significant autonomy, each with its own constitutions, parliaments, governments, and prime ministers. The state-level institutions in Sarajevo only oversee specific areas such as national security, foreign policy, and tax administration. At the top, a 3-member presidency represents the state, with 1 Bosniak and 1 Croat president elected from the Federation, and 1 Serb president elected from Republika Srpska. Crucially, each member of the presidency holds a veto power over any decision they believe harms the vital interests of their ethnic group. This means that any legislation that appears to challenge the interests of a single ethnic group is almost certain to be vetoed. This power-sharing agreement brought stability to the region, but it has made consensus nearly impossible. Unsurprisingly, legislative paralysis in Sarajevo has become the norm. To illustrate the degree of political gridlock, between 2018 and 2022, the state-level parliament in Sarajevo passed only a third of the laws put to a vote. This is an average of a mere 6 laws per year, and at one point the country went 14 months without a functioning government. Recognizing that such a system could lead to complete paralysis, the architects of the peace deal included a powerful external arbiter when consensus among the 3 groups is not achievable. The Dayton Agreement thus established the Office of the High Representative to oversee the civilian implementation of the peace deal. This diplomat, usually from the European Union or the United States, can impose binding decisions, strike down legislation, and even remove elected officials who obstruct the peace. and it has done so in multiple cases. While some see the High Representative as a necessary stabilizing force, many, particularly among Bosnian Serbs, view it as interference in their country's affairs. But the office of the High Representative was never designed to be permanent. Its dissolution is even a precondition for EU integration, as it was only established as a transitional mechanism to facilitate post-war recovery. This is relevant because nationalist leaders have started to openly challenge and reject its rulings. Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik, the president of Republika Srpska, has been an outspoken critic of the office of the High Representative. He has frequently called for the secession of Republika Srpska and labeled Bosnia a failed state. To bolster this position, he employs divisive rhetoric, such as denying the Srebrenica genocide, praising convicted Bosnian Serb war criminals, and promoting a pro-Russian foreign policy. And although Dodik's actions are the most confrontational, nationalist narratives are also present among Bosniak and Bosnian Croat leaders. Dragan Čović, the main Bosnian Croat leader, has consistently advocated for a separate third Croat entity. And on the other hand, Bosniak politicians like Bakir Izetbegović push for a more centralized state, a proposal often viewed by other factions as a threat to their autonomy. So yeah, the core rivalry pits Bosniaks seeking a centralized state against Croats advocating for a third separate entity, and Serbs threatening to secede entirely. Naturally, this cycle of competing rhetoric fuels instability in a particularly sensitive region. But recent events have centered on Dodik's direct confrontation with state institutions. His strong rhetoric and calls for a separate Republika Srpska army have raised alarm bells across the Western Balkans, with fear of a renewed armed conflict. Tensions escalated in April 2025 after state authorities attempted to arrest Dodik for defying rulings from the Constitutional Court and from the Office of the High Representative. In response, Dodik threatened to block the national government in Sarajevo and demanded the removal of all state-level judicial and police agencies from his entity. This domestic legal matter has now taken on broader geopolitical significance, placing Dodik and his allies in Moscow and Belgrade at odds with Western-backed institutions. Indeed, many analysts view Dodik's separatist rhetoric as being actively encouraged by Moscow, which seeks to undermine NATO and EU expansion and maintain a foothold of influence in the Balkans. By rejecting state institutions, Dodik not only undermines the functioning of Bosnia and the Dayton Agreement, but also implodes any progress toward EU integration with political crises and fears of renewed armed conflict. Bosnia applied for EU membership in 2016, received a candidate status in late 2022, and formally opened accession negotiations in 2024. This progress was accelerated not by substantial reforms within Bosnia, but by the EU's renewed geopolitical urgency to solidify its influence in the Western Balkans following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The journey requires Bosnia to adopt extensive EU laws, and progress is slow due to weak state institutions and political hostility. Key areas like the rule of law and public administration have seen little improvement. Moreover, Bosnia was ranked as the second most corrupt country in Europe by Transparency International, only behind Russia, and classified as a hybrid regime by the Economist Democracy Index. These deep-seated governance failures are not accidental. They are a direct result of a political system where ethnic loyalties consistently override national progress and reform. It is therefore difficult to see how a nation labeled as a failed state by its own leaders can confront its severe social, economic, and political challenges. While Bosnia's path to the EU is officially open, the fundamental conditions for integration are not being met. Divisive nationalist rhetoric across ethnic lines creates significant political challenges in Sarajevo. For instance, support for EU integration is roughly 83% among Bosnians in the Croat-Bosniak Federation, but less than 50% in the Serb-majority Republika Srpska. The country is caught in a geopolitical tug-of-war. Western powers are pushing Bosnia toward EU integration, while Russia encourages pro-secession Bosnian Serb leaders to stall that very process. And as long as political leaders prioritize ethnic divisions over institutional reforms, Bosnia's EU dream will likely remain that, a dream. The Dayton Agreement was an exceptional remedy that healed a fractured nation, but the country has not yet learned how to walk without it. This is just geopolitics. Do you think Bosnia is destined to fail, or can its people overcome the divisions that have paralyzed it? And if you want to learn more about politics and international affairs, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.